I have lots of fragrances, around 200, about 12 Pineapple Vintage fragrances. Some I think are okay, some I like, some I love. For the relevance of this review, I have Emperor EDP and Extrait, and I also have Pineapple Vintage Intense. I also have Aventus, a 2018 batch. I find that the Emperor in the dry down smells close, perhaps a bit less natural, but that's down to it being amped up compared to Aventus. But as for Emperor Napoleon, I find it smells more like a musky version of Pineapple Vintage Intense, so meaning that the pineapple is amped up to the point where it doesn't quite smell the same as Aventus. But I find that it smells actually like a weaker, older version of Pineapple Vintage Intense, like it smells after about 8 hours of wearing. So more pineapple and less musk. It reminds me of how my wrist would smell the morning after I've been wearing Pineapple Vintage Intense. Definitely not the manly beast that Emperor Extrait or Emperor EDP is, or even Aventus. So it's definitely a weaker, more fruity version. Longevity is good, about 9 hours or so, but its projection is about half that of Pineapple Vintage Intense or Aventus itself, and about a third of Emperor Extrait, which has crazy longevity, about 10-12 hours minimum. So the question is, do you get Pineapple Vintage, Emperor, Napoleon, or Emperor, or Aventus? Well, the answer for me is it's a no. You wouldn't get Napoleon over Emperor, and you wouldn't get it over Aventus, the real deal, whatever batch we're talking about here. It's just not as nice. It is in fact a little bit of a poor cousin to Pineapple Vintage Intense itself, so I don't see under any circumstances, even if you didn't own any of them, that you would decide to pick it. So this is my no-nonsense review of Parfums Vintage Emperor Napoleon. I've bought these myself. I'm not a fanboy of Pineapple Vintage fragrances, though a lot of them are nice, but I really do appreciate when they do something a little bit more original, like with Pineapple Vintage Intense, which is so far removed really from Aventus that you can almost say it's an original creation, and I believe it's their most popular. So what about Pineapple Vintage Intense Gold? Well, compared to the Pineapple Vintage Intense that I already have, the pineapple is a lot stronger. The longevity is about the same. The performance, sillage, everything else is excellent. A good 8 to 10 hours, call it 9 as standard. Pretty fantastic. The only difference really is it's a very much a sweeter pineapple. Now personally I prefer the Pineapple Vintage Intense because it's a little bit more subdued, and seasonally I believe you can wear it at any time, whereas perhaps the Intense Gold you'd be looking at wearing this possibly during the hot weather. In my view, it really is a very amped up, very sickly sweet pineapple note, perhaps a little bit more musky actually than the Pineapple Vintage Intense as well, but only a tad, a little bit more dirty on the pineapple side of things. If you already have Pineapple Vintage Intense, then I wouldn't bother getting Pineapple Vintage Intense Gold. If you haven't got PVI, then I would get a decant first, get a sample of the Intense Gold and just see what your tastes are. But personally I prefer PVI, Pineapple Vintage Intense, over the new version.